speaking of another quick fighter, Kendra, the
Yes,
vampire
the
slayer.
vampires.
Vampire
So
slayer.
we've been making fun of her for weeks now.
Yeah.
At this point, saw vampires like
Vampire slayer.
ever
It's
since
just,
we saw it.
it's just, it's like personally offensive.
Cause we're Jamaicans. We're Jamaicans, and so
And I
hearing
mean,
her do this.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I do not have the heaviest Jamaican accent.
Mhm.
I mean, I I grew up more or less in the States and then came here and live uptown and I
Yeah.
just am around other people who have half American accents a lot and or at least not really heavy accents.
Mhm.
So admittedly I don't but I'm around people all the time. In terms of like when I go out in public or when I'm at school or something, like I hear people constantly who have really thick accents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Kendra doesn't sound anything
Anything.
like anything I've heard. I've been to like the weirdest bush places of country and don't hear anybody talking like that. I don't understand it.
Kendra is this weird. She's this. I use weird a lot. I need to work on my adjectives. But Kendra is this.
We'll get you a thesaurus.
Thank you. Kendra is this hodgepodge of just like. She's this.
I got a big word. Amalgamation.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
She's an amalgamation of all of these maybe parts of maybe
Caribbean slash
speech.
like West African places.
She
Yeah.
just like and it all collides together. It's a collision
Because it's not a nice sweet combination. It's
because
like they just crash and burn.
parts of her inflection will just like hit into other parts, and they're just it's a pile up. Every time she talks, we keep on making fun of that one because it encapsulates everything that's wrong with her accent.
A perfect example of those just
Um,
all of the mistakes because it's like it starts so beautifully with East
mhm.
because it's not like it's a hard like Eastern yeah that's great Eastern exposure but then she goes Eastern exposure.
No, actually, remember she doesn't go Eastern. She actually says the first R properly, where she goes Eastern.
Really?
Yeah, she goes Eastern, and then she goes exposure.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're right.
Like, I don't. She says Eastern. Ebonics dictates that we're supposed to say the end of the word weird. It like trails off. We don't use hard sounds. The same thing applies in patois. The ends of sounds that are supposed to have R's are usually just like A's and U's and O's and O's and.
I don't know. You make it out to sound like almost like it's exclusive to patois when it's
no.
It's kind of.
No, but I mean that's why I mentioned Ebonics
because it's. The thing about Jamaica is that the accent is mostly mixed with West African and English based on slavery.
Yeah.
So we end up with like R's aren't pronounced very much when they end up at the end of the word. So Eastern exposure is Eastern exposure.
And not Eastern exposure. And you'd think that we're just nitpicking, which we
kind of are. We really are.
But at the same time,
everybody hates it. It's not like it's just us. Americans will listen to this and know that it's a bad accent, which is hilarious to me because I've almost never heard an American doing a proper Jamaican accent.
And these are the same people who think that Miss Cleo has a good call me now. They're just like, yes, yeah, that's what Jamaican.
That's not even true, actually. A lot of people recognize that Miss Cleo is a terrible Jamaican.
Okay, good.
What they do find believable is
Cool Runnings.
Yeah, Cool Runnings, which some of them are. A couple of them have pretty good. Sanko. Like he appeared again as one of the jellyfish, didn't he?
What you mean?
Wasn't it him? Or was it somebody else?
Shark Tale?
Yeah, in Shark Tale. I'm almost positive it's him and Marley.
Maybe. Which is just of all the people.
Why not just choose like another Jamaican?
Why not just choose which I don't understand?
Like, we have celebrities, guys. Come on. But he's done exposure. But yeah, she does a lot of, and I think the thing about Kendra is you can't necessarily blame it on Bianca Lawson because they gave her the accent last minute. They're just like, by the way, do a Jamaican accent. Here's a dialect coach. Like, you can't do that. The Jamaican accent is really hard, guys. If you, by some miracle, the person watching this happens to be a director or an actor or anybody working in film, television, plays, whatever, and you want to use a Caribbean accent, don't just hire a dialect coach who knows about accents. Don't just hire them overnight to teach you all of a sudden. Caribbean accents are really hard. They're really hard, especially for Americans. British people can catch it a lot faster than American people can, and if you're from the Caribbean already, you might be able to catch another Caribbean accent fairly easily, but for Americans, it's just really hard. So, don't do that. It's gonna be really obvious, especially to us.
And it ends up becoming distracting.
Distracting
for an otherwise, my name is Kendra.
The Vampire Slayer.
She's an otherwise great character marred by a horrible accent.
Kendra's a beautiful character. I love her character, and I'm actually amazing. She has the most amazing pants. Her pants are so good. Like her only shirt.
Yeah.
That was my favorite shirt.
Yes. That's the only shirt.
She's great. No, she has some great lines, and she has like. She has character development within her first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Like, you rarely ever get to see that with guest star characters, and you rarely ever get to see that with black characters. And she comes in, and then by the end of the 2-parter, there's character development.
I also think it's kind of interesting in terms of what her character is like the background that she comes from, the way that the trope of her like coming to the West and learning things about the West from this white person that makes her rethink stuff a little bit. That's usually a trope that's relegated to Asian characters. That they go, oh, they're from traditional China, where they come here and they learn that in America things go differently. American and Chinese guy now in theaters, and but it happens.
That's the name of the movie. American and Chinese.
Basically, it happens with her kind of, where she's always.
Stupid monitor. Sorry, guys.
She always has, or she's walking with her hands behind her back.
Yeah, she's very stern, and you know, it's funny because I had this thing where I feel like all of the Slayers that we see,
what do you mean? I'm sorry, continue.
We see them in flashbacks, guys, because you can only have one Slayer at a time.
Wink. Wink.
Wink. Is that because they might not be able to actually see you wink from there? Because look.
Oh yeah, it's possible.
Oh my god. Our camera is so bad. We need a new camera. But yeah, when we see Slayers in Buffy, I feel like they tend to like encapsulate the culture that they're coming from really beautifully. Like, Buffy is Beverly Hills girl all the way. Even as she grows and she matures, she's still really, you can see the Valley girl underneath. And then Kendra is coming from this like traditional third world country kind of background, and she carries that with her. And Jamaica, as much as it might surprise people, is a lot like that, where you'll hear people specifically like being upset about new ideas being presented because now you're Americanizing everything. And it's like, I don't think it's necessarily Americanizing to just want this new change to come about, because it's not just America that's doing this, honey.
Listen, in America,
but we need to be traditional.
They make you
and it's worse in country, of course.
And they like a ultrasound if you're sick or something like that. When you can just drink tea, and I don't understand what they're talking about. Tea is the remedy for everything.
So is white rum.
True. It works.
It's not that bad. We promise we have doctors.
It works. We have lots of doctors, actually.
Yeah.
Actually,
we also have a culture of doctors in this country. It's just like everybody grows up to go to med school.
But they're useless because tea is around.
Well, yeah. And the thing is that Kendra specifically comes from this vague, nondescript part of the middle of the country of Jamaica.
Yeah.
Where like she just comes from a place like a village or something.
And she's not allowed to talk to boys.
Well, you have that and just with city girls, honestly. Just like, because your mom thinks that if you talk to a boy, you're going to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, no, we've spent a lot of time on Kendra.
Yeah, we have.
It's a cultural thing. Yeah. But I feel, I connect with Kendra on a personal level, and I remember as a kid watching Kendra just going, there's a Jamaican girl on TV, and she's on an American show.
Hey, representation. Yeah.
Freeze. Jump to the air.
We have to jump in, and I'm just painted.
And then just like a thing flies across. Representation, guys. But yeah, I remember watching it when I was young, because What's My Line was actually the first episode that I watched.
Really?
Like, I'd seen other ones come and go and whatever, but
yeah.
The first one I really sat down and paid attention to, where it's like, ooh, what's going on with, like, what's happening, and then who's this, and, like, it was What's My Line, and Kendra was just, like, the best thing ever. Who's this vampire like that?
Vampire. My name is Kendra. Like, I have to specify that she was...
Kendra. The vampire slayer.
Vampire.
My favorite Kendra moment is Kendra with the crossbow. Please, I am an expert in all weapons. And she just like hits the fucking map.
What did she say? Like, this one must be faulty or something like that? It's great. She's great. Because she's not infallible. And it's not.
And she's a sweetheart too. Like, she's actually a really sweet person, but she's just she's been taught things are supposed to go a certain way. Yeah. She's gonna do them a certain way.
And I mean, for all intents and purposes, for all intents and purposes,
English.
Vampires are just demons. Like, Angel is
she almost
really rare.
Angel.
She almost brutally killed the guy. Just like, I'm just gonna leave you here to burn slowly in the sunlight.
Eastern exposure.
Eastern exposure.
We're just not gonna get over Kendra's accent. I'm sorry. Nobody has, and nobody ever will. Especially not us. Although I really do want a Kendra backstory comic. Mm-hmm. It never happens, and it needs to happen. Because she was trained her whole life to be a slayer. Yeah.
Which is just like, I don't know when Buffy found out.
She doesn't know about her parents.
Yeah, she's just like...
She doesn't know her last name.
I think I have I don't know. It's gonna be Kendra.
She just, like, vaguely comes from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Most likely Jamaica. Because apparently that's the accent that Bianca Lawson was taught, although they never specify where she's from, so maybe she's not from Jamaica. She has
a watcher who is apparently well known because she refers to him by name, and Jazz is like,
yes. Of Zubuto, yes.
Yeah.
But like, she has this interesting story to me, like this backstory that we just never get to see any of.
Also, I think it's super interesting that Slayerism. Like I don't know where it started.
As a religion.
As a religion. Slayerism, I don't know where it started yet. That hasn't been revealed to me. Although it kind of has, because you've explained it to me before.
I think so, but I mean, at this point, yeah, your spoiler filter.
But imagine slayers passing down through like all of the major cultures on Earth, and how separate cultures can inform the same thing. It's like mentioning Avatar again. Mm-hmm. The thing about the avatars is that there's this unifying thing about the avatar where every nation has its own temple dedicated to the avatar.
And
they all have their own disciples.
And they worship differently.
Yeah. But the idea is that they no matter what, every nation has their own way that they look at the avatar, and that they represent how they represent these people and how they treat these people and stuff like that. However, with slayers, you know about them, but because they're like just a single woman in secret fighting vampires until she dies, you're not going to have that amount of connectivity, because I mean, barely anybody knows about them. There aren't a lot of people to worship slayers.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be a secret, so it's really only supposed to be like the watcher and the slayer who knows that they exist at all.
Yeah. And so that means that all of these slayers kind of live in isolation, and it's really interesting having Kendra. I mean, she's Jamaican, but a lot of what she is very well. I mean, a lot of Jamaica is derived from West African cultures, but a lot of hers is very West African, even down to the fact that her watcher's name is Zabuto, which is like, that's not a Jamaican name. Jamaican names.
So funny that you say that.
Jamaican names have like a first name that can come from anywhere.
I specifically talked about this when we the Slayer X podcast, which if you're watching this, is probably where you're coming from. Like you're probably coming from like their fan page or their boards or something. We talked about another episode that Kendra's in, and I talked about specifically Sam Zabuto, and said, you know, that's not really a Jamaican name.
Yeah.
Because most Jamaican names are English names.
So Zabuto is his last name.
Sam is his first name.
That's even worse. Usually first names kind of come from wherever. Although we tend to stick to a certain amount of English first names. But last names are all English. More or less.
Unless we have people who are like... sorry. Most black people in Jamaica, we should say, have English last names. Because we don't get to know where our last names came from.
All of our names are our master's names, basically. And so they're like, we need to make this as like African coded as possible. And that would just be really interesting to see that explored. Like
that was what was one thing that was really interesting to me. With regards to Kendra, was just that like she's Rebecca and Kendra, I love it.
Yeah.
She's Jamaican, but might have been trained by a West African.
Yeah.
Can we just please have a Kendra comic? Just one.
It's like what does
just one.
What does Slayer? What does
I'm
gonna continue to say Slayerism. Like? What does Slayerism mean?
Yeah.
In a West African context, is it related to like Orishas, or which it could be very easily, or wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be cool.
And
let's do a thing.
At this point, you're telling me that doesn't get explored.
No, it fucking doesn't.
Which is just sad. And that is what I'd like to see.
We'd like to see Orisha Slayerism.
Yeah, I'd like to see Orisha Slayerism. I don't know, but I liked Kendra's character in general. They express a lot about her in a very short amount of time. I love how she interacts with Giles. Like, they're both super...
that was another thing that I loved. Like, she has an actual character.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like... I'm gonna let you get back to your point.
Okay.
But my thing was, again, like, you know, growing up in the States, and this is shortly after I'd moved there, so I still felt like very Jamaican, and you know, I felt kind of displaced as a Jamaican in an American society, and it's just like, wow, she's a Jamaican, and she's just coming from, like, you know, her Jamaican background, and she's here with all these American people being really weirded out by all these American people, and she immediately gravitates towards the really smart librarian guy, which is funny because a lot of the people that I gravitated towards were like my mom's co-workers who were all teachers. So I could relate to her so strongly as a little 7-year-old Jamaican girl. And
not only that, but they laugh.
Yeah,
like they're just like, and she's just like, yeah, that book is pretty long, and he's like, yes,
Volume 6.
Volume 6, and they're just laughing it up.